Hello, this is Matt Levine. I'm with SHB 450 Video Reflection 3 for chapters 4 and 5 of our book. First question about describing toughness and defining toughness. The definition, my favorite definition from this chapter, is on page 64. Confidence is a filter, tinting how we see the challenges before us and our ability to handle them. It tips the scales toward an optimistic or pessimistic view of our current situation. Kind of thinking confidence as a filter kind of gives you, think of it as a water filter, tinting how we see the challenges before us and our ability to handle them. How confident you are kind of dictates how much your water filter catches, how pure that water is, and the more confident, the more able-bodied you are to complete whatever task it is, whatever it be, academic, athletic, physical, mental. If you have the confidence to do it and the skill set to do it, the more confident you are, the more of that self-doubt, the more of those hurdles, the more of those challenges that will be filtered out in your water by the confident filter. Action crisis. So he actually talks about action crisis as kind of when we fail and then we begin to rationalize our now lesser goals. And I think a time maybe when I've experienced this is in basketball. This past year, I would say, we didn't have as good of a season as we all hoped, and you kept saying, don't let the expectations fall. Don't let the standard is the standard. The standard is the standard, no matter what. If we're winning, if we're losing, whatever. And I think to an extent that's good, but at some point you have to filter expectations. You can't coach two teams the same. That's kind of spinning a positive light on it, but as a negative example, there's a running thing, conditioning thing. And I've always been I'm not a runner by any stretch of the imagination, but conditioning wise, I've always been good at conditioning. I've always been able to keep up with the leaders and be in every conditioning drill. And after we had a few days off for Christmas break, we came back and did a conditioning heavy practice. And, my goal was to win these. However, after the first 17 across, so 17 of them in a minute, I did well. I was up in the top third, but it was clear I was not going to win them. No matter how deep I dug, I was not going to win them. So then, my goals kind of faltered. I went from, all right, I want to win them to let's just finish them all. And I was one of the 3 or 4 people that did finish them all. So I guess that was still an accomplishment, but an example of how my goals shifted and my expectations also shifted down. Creating inner confidence. So I don't mess up the name, I'm going to refer back to it. Lower the bar and raise the floor. I agree that raising the floor is a good idea, and having the self-awareness of, I'm good at this, I'm not good at this, is something I think that I'm pretty good at. But I think where this will be challenging me is lowering the bar. Every other toughness book or every other confidence book, like I mentioned in class a week ago, I recently read the David Goggins, his second book that came out in December. And there's really some straight contradictions in this book compared to David Goggins' book. He is kind of the old mantra of toughness that you can push through anything and you can accomplish anything you want, whatever that bar is. So now reading this, lower the bar. That seems like inherently wrong to me. It seems backwards to everything you've ever been told. So I guess, I'm very confident in myself. I expect great things, and I think to some extent hearing lower the bar just as challenging, kind of having even a deeper sense of self awareness and self-knowledge, knowing realistically where I could get and setting the bar still high, but there, rather than whatever my outlandish bar would be if I didn't have that keen self-awareness. So I think further developing my self-awareness and developing challenging yet realistic goals rather than challenging unrealistic goals that would keep pushing me, I think is something I struggle with. And also, I don't know if it's right. I think there's something to be said for throwing out there a very challenging goal that may seem impossible, but why not shoot for the stars? Shoot for the moon, you'll end in the stars. I think that's the saying, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. So I don't disagree with Magnus per se, but I think there's reason for discussion that could be amended. Chapter 5, learned helplessness. That's the one he talked about the dogs who had no control over whether they were getting shocked or not. So basically taking that applicable to us and life in general. When humans whether it be in athletics, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be in a relationship, whether it be whatever. When you take away their ability to have say, or when you even give the impression that no matter what they try, the result will not shift, you kind of learn to be helpless. You learn to give up. The path of least resistance. If you continue to put in extra hours at the office and you don't get recognized and keep getting passed up for promotions, you're probably not going to keep putting them in. An example I've seen in action, basketball again. I always get along with the guys on the basketball team. I think it's very frustrating, and I experienced it in prior years where one game you play 30 minutes, the next game you play 5 for no reason. And I think there are stretches where guys go from playing every game 20, 25 minutes to not playing for 2 weeks for no apparent reason, and it's very confusing. No one really knows. But not my place to cast judgment. Regardless, I think there's a place where those people, and I've been in that situation in the past couple of years, where you do feel helpless and you learn to be helpless because no matter what you do, you could still be playing efficient minutes, successful minutes, still putting in the work in the weight room, on the court, outside of practice, and you're just not getting rewarded for it. And I think I've seen it almost happened to me, and I've seen it happen to some younger guys in the basketball program where they get killed on the inside. They give up, and you can't blame them. It's understandable, but it's very tough. And having seen this perspective and being able to look back retrospectively on it, I wonder what the purpose of it is for my coach to do. I don't really know. But yeah, it's just an example. A cure for give-up-itis. He talks about the concentration camp people who said, just stand up and shave your head. Controlling what you can control. Again, that's related to basketball. My dad coached me all growing up and was an assistant even on the high school team. And that was always what I remember him saying, is just control what you can control. Sports, life, relationships, everything, game of ups and downs. Basketball is famously known as a game of runs. That's the saying, right? Control what you can control no matter what it is. Highs, lows, whether you just got the biggest promotion, you're going to buy a new house, or, you just got diagnosed with an illness, God forbid. But, just controlling what you can control and controlling that mindset, using it as a weapon. And that's kind of built into the self-determination. Once you control what you can control, that's when you really become dangerous, and anything in front of you can be overcome. Having the perspective that I think Magnus talks about is key in this. You don't just blindly run into anything and say, oh, I can take this, I can do that. But if you say, hey, if I do these steps, if I control when I wake up, my workout routine, yada, 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 I do X, Y, Z, good things will happen, and that can overcome anything. You can be very self-determined that way. Share a time when you increased your toughness by taking control of something. I think one of those things would be, not to always go back. I know in the past weeks I've gone back to my law school admissions test and the grueling process of law school admissions. I think I really took control of that situation. There's a Concordia Law Club. I'm the president of it now. It just was started last year, but it's very in its infancy stages. It's not really developed to the point where it should be, or hopefully will be one day. So I was alone in this journey. I had to exercise a lot of the things we've talked about, whether it be, the self-determination or curing give-up-itis. I really had to take control of the situation and say, you know what, take a step back. Hey, I'm going to do this, and I can live with the result because I'm going to control what I can control. I'm going to become determined to finish my goal. And I'm going to study so hard and so consistently that whenever I take the test, I can live with the results because I know I put in the work. I know I put in the thing. I know I put in the time. And to relate it back to the beginning of chapter 4, he talks about the world-class runner that goes for a 40-minute jog just before his big race, just because he needed somewhere in his head. I put in enough work to where I didn't suffer from that. 3 or 4 days before, I didn't take any practice tests. I didn't really do any study. Maybe once or twice just to keep it fresh, but I didn't feel a need to do a whole thing just to prove to myself that I could do it. So I think I really took control of that situation, and obviously reading this book after the fact, I can kind of look retroactively and apply the different tactics I used to be successful in that. And obviously, I was, and everything's working out according to plan. So yeah, it's interesting. That would probably be my favorite part of reading this book, is Obviously, I can look forward in the situations I encounter with this perspective, but there's something kind of cool and kind of looking introspectively and saying, oh, this give upitis. I didn't even know the term, but yet I applied the principles to avoid it here or here, and just different things like that. So I'm really happy with the book so far, and I like the way it's turning out, and I'm excited to keep going. Thank you.